Nestled high in the Himalayas, the village of Solace was a forgotten world. Towering peaks clawed at the sky, their shadows stretching long and dark over the stone houses. The air was thin and cold, and the scent of pine needles and damp earth hung heavy. It was a place where time seemed to stand still. The villagers lived as their ancestors had, whispering tales of ancient spirits and forgotten gods.
Arav shivered, pulling his jacket tighter. He had arrived only yesterday. The city seemed a world away. He was a journalist, drawn here by stories of missing people. The villagers spoke of it in hushed tones, looking to the mountains with fear in their eyes. The old ways ran deep here. Superstition clung to the air like the morning mist. Arav could feel it prickling at his skin. He was a man of logic and reason. He scoffed at ghost stories and fairy tales. But here, in this isolated place, doubt gnawed at the edges of his mind.
The silence was broken only by the wind whistling through the prayer flags. It carried with it a sense of unease. Arav felt a chill run down his spine. He was an outsider here, intruding on secrets best left buried. The disappearances had started 3 months ago. At first it was just a shepherd. He vanished in the night, leaving behind a scattered flock and a chilling silence. Then a young woman returning home from the market never arrived. Each disappearance followed a similar pattern. No clues, no witnesses, just an empty space where someone used to be.
The villagers whispered of ancient curses and vengeful spirits. They spoke of the whispering shadows, a malevolent force said to haunt the mountains. Arav listened patiently. He knew that fear and isolation could breed superstition. He searched for a logical explanation. There had to be a rational reason for the disappearances.
He interviewed the families of the missing. Their grief was raw, their fear palpable. They spoke of strange occurrences before their loved ones vanished. Shadows moving in the night, whispers carried on the wind, dreams filled with dread. Arav tried to remain objective, focusing on the facts. He meticulously documented each disappearance, noting the similarities, the patterns. Yet deep down, a seed of unease began to take root in his mind. The villagers' fear was contagious. It was as if the mountains themselves were watching, waiting. His investigation led him to Maya, a young schoolteacher with haunted eyes. She moved with a quiet grace, her face etched with a sadness that ran deeper than her years. Maya was a bridge between the old ways and the new. She respected the traditions of her people, but also possessed a sharp intellect and a thirst for knowledge. She agreed to help Arav to navigate the labyrinth of local lore.
Together we can uncover the truth. The villagers need answers.
Then there was Kiran, a photographer accompanying Arav on this assignment. Unlike Arav, Kiran embraced the supernatural tales. He saw the mystery as an adventure, a chance to capture something extraordinary on film. His enthusiasm bordered on recklessness.
This is going to be amazing. Imagine the shots we can get, Arav. The villagers' warnings, just stories to scare children.
And then there was the shaman, an ancient figure shrouded in mystery. He was a living relic of the past. His eyes, deep and knowing, seemed to hold the weight of generations. He spoke in riddles, his words heavy with unspoken meaning.
Beware, young ones. Some secrets are not meant to be uncovered. The spirits do not take kindly to intruders.
Arav found himself drawn to each of them. Maya, with her quiet strength and tragic past. Kiran, with his infectious enthusiasm and disregard for danger. And the shaman, with his cryptic warnings and ancient wisdom. Together they formed a strange alliance, bound by the mystery that had brought them together. Their search led them to a crumbling library tucked away in the village monastery. The air was thick with the smell of incense and decay. Dust motes danced in the weak shafts of sunlight that pierced the gloom. They discovered a hidden compartment, its entrance concealed behind a loose stone. Inside they found a leather-bound diary, its pages brittle with age.
This diary, it belonged to a scholar who vanished a century ago. He was researching the folklore of the region. obsessed with the legend of the Whispering Shadows.
His entries were filled with chilling details. He described the entity as a manifestation of fear and despair. It fed on the darkness in men's hearts.
Look here, Arav. He wrote of a ritual, a dark ceremony meant to appease the shadows. But the ritual was incomplete, abandoned centuries ago when a great evil was unleashed.
The scholar believed that something had awakened in the mountains, something ancient and malevolent. Arav felt a shiver run down his spine as he read the scholar's words. They were filled with a sense of urgency, a desperate plea for understanding. It was as if the scholar had known his fate, had accepted his destiny.
This is incredible. It's like we're part of the story now. But what if the scholar was right? What if something is out there?
Arav closed the diary, his mind racing. The legend of the Whispering Shadows was more than just a story. That night, the nightmares began. Arav found himself trapped in a maze of his own making. The air was thick with the scent of pine and something else, something metallic and cloying. He could hear whispers slithering around the edges of his consciousness. They spoke of his deepest fears, his hidden shames.
I saw Maya, her eyes wide with terror, dragged into the darkness by unseen hands. I reached for her, but my fingers passed through her like smoke.
He woke up with a gasp, his heart pounding against his ribs. The line between dreams and reality blurred.
Arav, I too was haunted. My family's connection to the legend. Generations ago, my ancestors were the keepers of the ritual, tasked with keeping the Whispering Shadows at bay. But they failed. The entity claimed my great-grandmother, driving her mad. I bear the weight of this legacy, the fear passed down through generations like a curse.
Arav listened, his skepticism wavering. He wanted to dismiss her fears as superstition, but he couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. The nightmares were growing stronger, more vivid. They were seeping into his waking hours, twisting his perception. As the days passed, Kiran's behavior grew increasingly erratic. He became obsessed with capturing the Whispering Shadows on film.
I have to get them on camera. I have to...
He spent his nights wandering the mountains, his camera his only companion. He returned with wild tales and blurry photographs.
The shadows, they move on their own, and I saw faces in the darkness.
The villagers, once wary, now viewed them with open hostility. They whispered behind cupped hands, their fear palpable, suffocating.
They have awakened something best left undisturbed.
They blamed Arav and his companions for attracting the evil, feeding it.
I can feel it. A knot of anxiety tightening in my chest. I'm losing control of the narrative, of myself.
He needed to find a rational explanation to regain his footing. But the logic that had always guided him seemed to be slipping away. He was caught in a web of fear and paranoia, starting to question everything, everyone, even himself. Seeking answers, they returned to the monastery. The shaman led them to a hidden chamber beneath the main temple. The air was heavy with the stench of decay and the metallic tang of blood. The walls were adorned with gruesome murals depicting the ancient ritual.
These figures, cloaked in shadow, their hands stained crimson, they tell of a desperate attempt to appease the Whispering Shadows.
The shaman explained that the ritual demanded a terrible price, a human sacrifice.
There is a powerful artifact, a talisman that could bind the entity, but it was lost centuries ago, swallowed by the mountains.
Arav looked at the murals, his stomach churning. He could feel the weight of history pressing down on him.
The legend, it's true. The Whispering Shadows are real, and they are hungry.
Driven by a desperate hope, they ventured into the mountains, following the clues in the scholar's diary. The path was treacherous, the air thin and cold, but they pressed on, driven by a shared sense of urgency. They were running out of time.
We have to keep going. We're so close.
They found the ruins of an ancient temple, half buried in snow and ice. The air was thick with a palpable sense of dread. It was here, according to the diary, that the ritual had been performed. And it was here that it would be completed.
This is it. This is where it all happened.
But as they stepped across the threshold, they walked into a trap. Kiran, his eyes wild and manic, turned on them. He'd been consumed by the shadows.
By completing the ritual, I can control them, bend them to my will.
Maya, her face pale with terror, revealed her betrayal.
I'm sorry, Arav. I had to do it. Sacrificing you is the only way to break the curse on my family.
The climax was a blur of chaos and violence. The ancient ritual, fueled by fear and desperation, reached its terrifying crescendo. Arav fought back against Kiran's madness and Maya's betrayal, but he was outmatched, outmaneuvered. He was a pawn in a game he didn't understand.
I have to get out of here. I have to survive this.
He managed to escape, fleeing from the crumbling temple as the mountain roared its fury. He stumbled back to the village, his mind reeling, his soul shattered. He had found his story, but it was a story that would haunt him forever. The villagers were gone, vanished into the night. The only sign of their existence was the eerie silence that hung heavy in the air. The whispering shadows had claimed them all.
I came here seeking answers. I leave with nothing but questions.
The truth was lost in the swirling snow and the echoing silence of the Himalayas. The curse of the whispering shadows lived on.